thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast. This is Lauren, and I manage the Adulting is Easy blog and podcast, which can be found at realadultingiseasy.com and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Please, if you can safely do so, take a second and hit the follow button wherever you're listening, and at the end, please rate and review. I'm joined today by Les O'Hara. In the first half of his career, Les was a serial entrepreneur, owning and managing 12 different businesses, amassing $100 million in revenue over the last 30 years. Now, in the second half of his career, he's focused on mentoring his wife in her STR business, that's short-term rental business, his 4 sons, who are making moves in sports and business, and other savvy business owners via cash flow management and alternate investing systems. Thanks for joining me, Les.
Lauren, what an honor to be here.
I do want to tell everybody that this episode is sponsored by Jasmine Mortgage Team. Jasmine and her team know financing your real estate will pay big dividends to your net worth. Jasmine's team offers conventional, jumbo, FHA, doctor loans, and more. Sign up for a free consultation with Jasmine Mortgage Team at jasminemortgageteam.com and tell them Lauren from Adulting is Easy sent you. That's jasminemortgageteam.com. So Les, our goal for today is to make adulting a bit easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. Today, we're going to talk about real estate and specifically using syndications to buy short-term rentals. But Les, why don't you kick us off by telling listeners what a short-term rental, what an STR even is?
Well, most of the listeners will know that a short-term rental is basically, it's Airbnb, it's vacation rentals, it's VRBOs. Anything under 31 days, I think, is the technical date for short-term rentals, and versus a long-term rental where you're trying to get in a longer-term lease for someone to stay in your property.
Absolutely. I like to say short-term rentals because I think sometimes Airbnbs get a bad rap because of parties and things like that. So I try to say short-term rentals as much as possible, but certainly can sub that out with Airbnbs. Absolutely. And what about a syndication? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, it sounds like, well, I'm from Chicago, so the syndicate is all the mob guys here and what they used to be called. But it's interesting that it's also used as a way to describe a partnership that gets put together by a general partner that goes out and seeks investments from a multiple of people. And sometimes they do it into a commercial property. Sometimes it's multifamily apartment buildings. That's where you see the syndication happen most often. And it just so happened for us that we're doing these for short-term rentals, where we will bring in more than 2, 3, 4 investors to all pull their money together to invest into a short-term rental property.
Love it. I'm so excited to dive into this. Well, now that we've got kind of those definitions out of the way, I got to ask, you've had a successful career, you've raised 4 boys, you have grandkids. Why get into investing in short-term rentals now?
Great question. And I think part of your question was the answer is that our 4 boys we're empty nesters for the first time, and they're spread around the country. We have them in Florida. We just got back from California last night, so I apologize if I sound half asleep. We got in late, but we have in LA, in Sacramento. We always traveled with the kids growing up. So some went to college in Texas. We love Texas. Colorado is a frequent spot for us. We love snowboarding and skiing. We're in Chicago here. Julie and her family's from North Dakota. We went to school in Minnesota. We love Minneapolis. Our friends live up there on lakes. We fell in love with Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a totally slept on city. And we just fell in love with that area. And then one of our sons went to Middle Tennessee State, and we all of a sudden were in Nashville, and we loved Nashville. So with all of these great places, and also our kids moving around the country, we just felt like short-term rentals provides us the opportunity to be close to them, to have a business in that area that we're writing off plane tickets, uh, vacation spots when we go to these locations. We always are looking for new potential investments. So that's a potential write-off for you. But just now in our phase of life, we want to have this lifestyle investment where we can go and meet the kids, visit different other areas, and have a business that will sustain itself in these other locations that we actually like to go to. So just to wrap it up, I mean, Julie and I would always travel and we'd stay in Airbnbs, and we'd be these, fussy couples like, man, if we ever owned our own Airbnb, we would do this, this, and this. And so now the pressure's on. We actually do these things, and we hope that the marketplace, accepts our little tweaks on what we do. And so far, it's been working really well.
I love that lifestyle investment idea and that concept, and that makes so much sense. You guys have been exposed to a lot of this country, and why not invest in it? Makes total sense to me. So, with being Airbnb guests or short-term rental guests over time, what are some of those things that you've learned to do or maybe not to do as short-term rental hosts?
Well, a lot of our mentors ahead of time that we've grown up into this business, and 2.5 years now is only the length of time that we've been doing it, but we've learned so much. But one thing that always resonates in our mind, we learned from Richard Furtick from Short-Term Rental University, but these are experiences that people go to, and they're already a little bit ramped up. They're in a new location. You don't want to, you really want to have your accommodations hit home. But if you could also provide a unique experience, and when I say unique experience, it's not, we're not having, cheerleaders show up or anything, crazy. We're just setting up the unit so that they're going to say, oh, wow, that is really unique. Or what is that? Why is that there? Just throwing people off balance a little bit. I think that's what we're great at, is just setting up the environment to be special and not just cookie cutter. Julie and I are the antithesis of just cookie cutter. If you could just get it somewhere else, then it's totally, we reject that. We want people to feel like they're in a special place, they're taken care of, and it's unique, and they're not going to see it in just any other place.
So what's an example of that? It doesn't sound like you have people staying in a potato. Like I've seen that one on the internet,
Yeah.
So what's an example of something that is unique that kind of wows guests or throws them off balance right when they get there?
So her and I, one of our things that we really enjoy is visiting antique stores wherever we go. When Julie and I are out and into these different kind of facilities and antique stores, the most unique pieces that look oddball, we gravitate towards. So in our place in Milwaukee, one of our places in Milwaukee, we have these huge rusted peeling metal doors that they have to be 1,000 pounds each. And we've had them hanging from the ceiling. They're very large wood timber ceilings. One is used as a room divider to separate when you walk in the front door to see over on the other side of the couch. That's your backdrop. And then when you go out to the patio, we have the other complementary door, and that is mounted against the brick wall. So as you're sitting out there enjoying drinks, or your meal after dinner, you have this huge door that looks like it could fall on you at any time, but it almost looks like it's been there. So that's kind of, that's the kind of things that we like designing into our units, so that it's definitely not cookie cutter. Someone's going to say, wow, that is really something else.
That's awesome. I've taken the opposite approach where my places are kind of like not super wow factor. My plan is to go back and add some wow factor later now that I'm kind of all set up. So that's given me some really cool ideas. So I absolutely love that. So, question, why did you and Julie not go into this alone? Why syndicate? Why get a partnership together at all?
Super question. So how we got into it was, I'm a big fan of strength finders. Lauren, do you know what those are? That assessment test that you take from Gallup?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. And we have all of our kids take it. I have all my employees take it. But one of my biggest strengths is called input. And so I need to like really, if I'm interested in the subject, I buy all the books, I get on YouTube, I get on Twitter, and I kind of get the whole big picture, and then I try to implement, the plan. So when we started thinking to ourselves, hey, we can do this Airbnb business, I jumped on YouTube and I found Sean from Airbnb Automated that teaches you the rental arbitrage model. And the rental arbitrage model for your guests is you don't have to own the real estate. You could lease the real estate and then you sublease it to Airbnb and you make that spread. So in other words, our rent is $2,000 in Milwaukee and we make $5,000 in putting it on Airbnb and VRBO. We make that difference of $3,000. So we thought we surely could do it based on our experience of seeing other Airbnbs. So we were going it alone. We went to Milwaukee. We love that town. We found a apartment building that would actually be welcoming to short-term rental operators. And funny story, just to backtrack a little bit, but we were staying in an Airbnb in that apartment building. And we realized that the person that was running it, it could have been so much better, so much more unique that I'm direct messaging him on the platform and saying, hey, do you mind if I'd like to talk and meet you in person? And Julie and I met the owner, and he kind of told us how he got into the deal, how it's working, and so on. So I did a little impromptu investigation work. And then he introduced us to the leasing agent. And this was a new building. So we end up saying we could do this. It was a perfect building. It was everything that we love, is exposed brick, exposed wood ceilings, timber loft in a really trendy area of Milwaukee. So we didn't sign up for one. We, of course, go big or go home. We said, we'll take 2 units. We signed the leases. That was November of 2020. COVID hits the next, within days. So now we have 2 leases and we're trying to, and everyone is quarantined at home. No one's moving, no one's traveling. So, but fast forward, we did survive these last 2 years, and then we picked up another unit, and Milwaukee was like our proving ground for, can we do this business? And we did it with a lot less risk of buying the real estate. All we had was a lease, and we had the cost of the furniture and the furnishings. So that was our way of easily cutting our teeth in the business. And that is a great way I recommend to people that are interested in this business, of just trying to go down that route with a little bit less risk. But then once we figured this business out, and we figured we had a little mojo on here, so the obvious play then is owning the real estate versus the arbitrage.
Thank you so much for all of that background and for explaining what rental arbitrage is. And the reason that's less risk is because you're putting less money up, because you don't have like the down payment. You didn't pay the closing costs. You're not in it for as much because you're in it for just whatever the lease is, I guess, and then how much you put into it. So what would you say? You said you got 2 units at first. What would you say for each of those? How much money did you have at risk when you were doing the arbitrage?
Well, we had the security deposits, which was about $1,500 per unit. And then we probably spent about 15 grand per unit on getting it all set up, furniture, software that you need, sensors. We're big fans of that minute sensor. So I would say 35,000, we're all in, and that's not including the sweat equity of, how many visits do you have to take to the place to set it up and eating and, all that fun stuff.
I do. I do know all of those things. Okay. So versus if you were going to buy a property, it's an investment, you got to put 25, 30% down. You could be 100,000 in easy, right?
Yeah. And that would just be for one unit. So it'd almost be 200,000 for the 2 units if we could own those comparably. Okay. Yeah.
But I love that. So you figured out, okay, we thought we could do this. We can, in fact, do this. Obviously, also, I'm sure you've learned a lot of things to kind of change and make better going forward. And then you thought, okay, let's actually own the real estate. And forgive me for asking, this seems like kind of a stupid question, but why would you want to own the real estate?
Well, the obvious answer is it's an asset that's appreciating for you over time if you bought correctly. As anyone knows that buys their home and pays the mortgage dutifully over time, that principal is getting paid down and your property is appreciating. What's unique about short-term rentals is now a X factor comes into play is these are investment properties, and now you get enhanced tax advantages to help offset your income that you're making in other areas. And that is something that I'm still in the process of learning. But what I've known in my career is most of the multi-millionaires who I've been lucky enough to do construction work for or be partners with, they have, it seems like a majority have always had significant assets in real estate. And this is something that I'm hoping to break the chain in my family of us never owning real estate outside of our primary homes, to teach my sons and my grandkids that the sooner you get into this, we'll call it the game of real estate, the faster you're on your way to financial freedom and tax advantages and this game that the wealthy play. And that's where we wanted to be.
Makes total sense. You are absolutely right on every single facet of that. So we talked about with these units, you were $35,000 in. Had you bought something similar, because there were 2 of them, it would have been $200,000 in. Is that where the syndication comes in? Because up top, you kind of said a lot of times it's apartment buildings or commercial real estate. That's where you syndicate. Is it because it's just the magnitude of it is so much higher? You just need the cash from other people because you don't have it? Or is there also this aspect, like you said, you value input from your strengths finder? Does that mean that you wanted other people also, not just their money, but also their input and things like that?
That's a super point that just resonated as you're saying it. But that's what's really happened organically is the people that we have been involving in the partnerships have also enhanced the experience, the brand, the network of people to now network with and find more investors. It's kind of a snowball that as you get this thing going, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it's falling down the hill. So, the quite frank answer is we would love to do these on our own, but we don't have this kind of money. So how else can you do this of trying to open up 1, 2, 3, 4 a year in different locations if you only have a certain amount of funds for extra alternative investments outside of, whatever you're doing, your main business? Like my masonry business is the main source of income. So my thought was, as I was learning this real estate business and syndications, was this is really deal making. It's the art of the deal. And that's what intrigued me too, was that it takes a little bit of vision. It takes a lot of little assets that you need to do to pull these off. It takes presentation skills. It takes a little bit of marketing. It takes financial acumen to be able to do the due diligence on the deals. It takes some savvy deal making on making offers. It takes some construction knowledge on knowing if the building is in good repair, how good is the roof, how much money do you have to put away. In my life, a lot of things added up to be this point person to help other people invest in real estate. So I'm just at this Julie and I are in this unique situation where a lot of our peers are in the same situation that we were in, is that, okay, we're now successful in our careers, but we really haven't had any exposure to real estate and the tax advantages of that. So what do we do? We're building this vehicle that people can now participate in, also enjoy it as a lifestyle investment. Come to Chicago, Lincoln Park. They could bring their family. They get some discounted stays or sometimes even free stays, but they're also getting the tax write-offs and potentially the distribution income that will come with this real estate. So we just said, let's try to do this as a group. And we started with, a core group of men that came together and liked the idea as much as I did.
I think that's one of the most cool things about real estate, finding people who think like you do and getting to talk about it. And so that really resonates with me. And so you had this proven concept in Milwaukee. I'm assuming as you were, practicing the art of the deal, presentation marketing, using your financial acumen, you were taking that as a use case, saying we could do this, we can do it in another area. Is that right?
Yep. So we felt confident in we had 3 in Milwaukee going. We picked up one in Chicago that we were doing the property management model, which your audience should know. You can actually manage other people's properties and you make a percentage of the revenue. We had that going on. That was a successful addition to our portfolio. So my other businesses, I coach other business owners on cash flow management, a little bit of marketing, all my 30 years of running construction type of businesses and whatnot. I have grown a customer base all across the country. And some of these clients are now what I consider best friends, just from working together, over the last 5 years. So when we fell in love with Nashville, our passion for Nashville and seeing how hot that market is down there, we found we found a real estate agent when we were down there, Julie and I. We had a couple of areas that we loved about Nashville, and we just looked and looked and looked at so many units, and we made offers on some and we lost. And we finally found a great one that was being opened by the new soccer stadium. I just put the math together and realized, we needed $200,000 to pull this deal off. And that $200,000 included the down payment, closing costs, a little bit of cash reserves, all the furnishings, and that would kick this thing off. And so I just went to two of my clients. And I just said, hey, here's the deal. We each put in $50,000 and we're 25% owners. We'll start a new LLC and we'll just get this thing going. We're bringing all this knowledge of running the Airbnb, and let's just kick it off. Everyone was on board, and almost everything that could go wrong went wrong with this unit. Is because it was new construction. The builder cut a lot of corners. That's a whole nother podcast episode. You and I will share. But the bottom line is kind of a partnership of just, hey, four like minds. Let's put together. We all like Nashville. Let's own some real estate there. Let's be able to take our families down there. And oh, by the way, if we can make money while we're doing it, great news.
Okay, so $200,000, $50,000 each. Did the $200,000 end up being what you needed, or was there more because of those construction issues?
Great question. So yeah, we did go over because of that. A couple of things, really some really sharp lessons that we learned here. One is we lost 10,000 right from the get-go because we had picked a mortgage broker that was not, what's the good word, just very unprofessional. Close, we knew 6 months ahead of time for the close, and right when we got near the close, our underwriter, our mortgage broker, kept coming back with more and more document needs at the 11th hour, where we actually missed our close. And so the seller then wanted to get out of the deal unless we were going to pay $60,000 more, because the property had already appreciated. It was an incredible fight back and forth. We were consulting with the lawyers. What do we do here? But the lesson there was you need a very strong relationship with a mortgage broker that you know is going to be able to come and get you to the table and get you closed. Because we chose this one that didn't treat us as top priority, we ended up having to give the seller an extra $10,000 at closing on the side. In addition to that, because of these delays and this new construction and us having to do a lot of some remediation to the unit that never got done by the builder, that was about another 10, 15 grand, which if I was smart enough, I would have built some fudge into this on the front end, but I didn't. But luckily we were all able to absorb it, and the place is up and running, and we're really enjoying so far the results.
Gotcha. Some lessons right there. So you didn't stop there. Obviously, you took what you learned in Milwaukee, you took what you learned in Nashville, and then where did you go from there?
So here's a great lesson that we learned, and I'm still learning it to this day, is that I was so eager to just get into this space, to build a brand, that to those other investors in Nashville, it was an incredible deal because they're just putting up the money. I'm also putting up the money, the same equal amount of money. But Julie and I put in 10x of these efforts to get this thing going. Just unbelievable. Just think about the closing debacle, how many documents, and I'm going back and forth with attorneys, and now the builder's no good, and now I'm fixing things, and I'm setting up the units, and we're decorating it, and we're going to Home Depot, and we're sitting there building the beds, at 12 o'clock at night. So what your audience needs to understand is that is valuable, what you bring to the table of even opening one of these real estate ventures for other people to participate in. So what we learned from the next deal and the next deal, Lincoln Park, Chicago was our next deal. And in there, we were able to negotiate acquisition fees and setup fees to help compensate us for all of this work that has to be done on the front end, on the middle end, and then also on the back end of managing it right now.
That's what I was going to say. There's another aspect to it too. There's finding the deal, which has value in and of itself, because your partners probably weren't looking in Nashville. Maybe they're not as familiar with Nashville. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into finding deals, analyzing them, and putting all of that together. Then absolutely setting up. There's so much that goes into that. There's so much coordination, furnishing, decorating, all of those things. And we've already talked about you go above and beyond with some of the design, right? So getting compensated for that. And that was what I was going to ask you too, Les, was about the ongoing management fee, because that's a whole thing too. And I've always kind of wondered, does it even make sense if you're going to do the management, you're going to do the setup, you're going to do how much money should you even be bringing to the table? Did you negotiate it that way? Or do you have are you paid kind of more ongoing than the partners are? How does all of that look?
So what you negotiate into the pro forma is a management fee. So Julie's has a management company that will manage the property, handle all of the bookings, schedule cleaners, handle any maintenance task in that. So that's kind of built already into the cash flow model, and negotiating the proper percentage is kind of the key. Most management companies that do this professionally, as I'm learning the business more and more, but it's usually a minimum of 15%, sometimes all the way up to 30%, which that's what we were charging for the location in Chicago. But 20% is probably that sweet spot. Lauren, you probably know that number best down by you. Would you say it's 20%?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on, are they helping with the listing? Does that include the cleanings? But yeah, 25% for sure.
Yeah. So we have really favorable management rates, quite frankly, because I wanted to make the deal attractive to investors. I didn't want this to look like I'm getting money all over the place and this is how we're really making the money. So one property, we're only charging 8%. Now that we're getting our legs under us and we're realizing, we have a good formula, it's up to 12%. Will it go higher than that? Probably, if the deal's right. But I want to make sure the investors are protected first. I don't want to be taking out 20% of management fees and the investors are getting less of a return. My beginning stance on this is I want all the investors to win. I want to have a reputation of bringing good deals, making good deals for investors. And then I feel like that'll take care of itself. Your reputation, will take care of itself. But you hit it on the head, which I'm still having to educate some of my investors, some of my partners on, of what it really takes to pull one of these off. It is a lot of work. Just what you said on the front end was just finding the deal. Just finding the deal is so much work. It's so many visits to properties and getting the financials and checking the neighborhoods out and doing the air DNA. What potential revenues can we make off of this area? And holy moly, it's so much, where an investor, all they have to do is put the money up and you've already done all the work for them.
Yeah, there's value in that. I think a lot of people think finding the money is the hard part. And certainly starting off, it is hard, right? Even think about just buying your first property, even if it's your primary, getting that first, 20, 30, 40, whatever, is hard. But later on in life, if you've been investing in things like that, the money is actually out there. It's the time that a lot of people don't have. And it's the time that it takes to find these deals and set them up. That is, in my opinion, actually the harder part as we go on. I mean, of course, the money is important, but I think a lot of people don't understand that if not them, somebody else will invest, because everybody kind of has some money or has someone, or everybody could have money, but not everybody could understand the STR market in Nashville. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you had the Lincoln Park deal. You'd learned some lessons, particularly about, getting paid for the setup fee, for setup, acquisition, and then the management fees. Where did you guys go from there?
So Lincoln Park was, again, another feather in our cap, where we found the best neighborhood in Chicago really is Lincoln Park. And that was probably 2 years of looking in Chicago. That's where my main business is. So we would be always, as we're in the city, checking out locations. And, ours is kind of unique, is we want to find a unique property from the get-go. Not only do we bring unique elements to it, but we really don't want something, a plain vanilla box, and then we're going to make it unique. So our deals probably come a little bit further and far between, because we're really looking for, something that's different. So that one took a while, but when we were in Milwaukee and we saw that, okay, we now have 2.5 years of track record of being one of our 3 properties up there are like the top 3 properties in this Walker Point, 3rd Ward part of Milwaukee. So now it was a matter of, okay, what do we do? We need to own real estate in Milwaukee now. This is a sleeper town. Let's look there. So we have same thing. Your audience needs to know you're probably going to go on a hunt for at least 6 months, I would imagine. But this one took, a year of putting out feelers, talking to a lot of real estate agents. And one particular agent up there in Milwaukee was a loft expert. He was like, he's the condo guy. And I kept in touch with him. You need to have a way to stay in touch with key people in your database. And I would hit him up every 3 months, like, hey, anything, short-term rental coming up, and, staying in touch. And he'd send out listings, and I'd ask, can you short-term rental this? And he's like, no, it's a condo. No. But one day, a property came up that was four condos in an old row house in a really unique part of Milwaukee, near the Harley Davidson Museum, near hotels, really cool area near the Lake Michigan, and really blocks away from our other units. And so just that networking and staying in touch, he thought of me and put me in touch with that agent. And so now the adventure began, where this was 4 units that I had this idea that this can be a boutique hotel concept, where these 4 units are available to rent. But in addition to that, maybe bigger parties like wedding parties, family reunions could all come and stay under one roof, with very unique exterior backyard areas. And it's it was built in 1892. So I tried to get all 4 under contract, but now this is like big time money. It was $1.5 million they wanted for everything. And so the adventure begins right when you find something like this. So now I have to sell this to other people. And that was the big challenge. I guess I could go into more detail of what questions you have, but right now, as of today, we have closed on that building and have just really some cool things to be showing your audience and Twitter coming down the pike here in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Congrats on that one. That's so awesome. I've heard so many good things, and I'm taking rapid notes, and I'm sure the listeners are learning a lot as well. So it sounds like you have to be patient. You have to also be willing to learn as you go here. What's the plan then? If everything takes like 6 months, or you said the Lincoln Park one took a couple of years, what's your plan for the future? What's the frequency here?
Yeah, so it's an interesting tug of war between Julie and I, because of how these deals lay out, and you have to look at a lot of deals. It feels like we're moving really fast, and we're probably, for her, we are moving fast. For me, as a serial entrepreneur, we're not moving fast enough. What happens is, the tug and pull of this is that you need to be looking at a lot of deals, and you need to be in several areas that you want to go to. We want to be down in Florida, that Gulf Coast, Sarasota area. We want to be in Austin. We want to have a place in Colorado, and we really love Montana, Whitefish Bay, I think it is, Montana. We want to be up on a lake in upper Wisconsin. So what do? You have to have feelers out, and you have to be on searches, Zillow searches, and some way of getting these properties put in front of you to find these deals. But for Julie, she feels like, oh my goodness, we're looking all over these places. All of a sudden, we might have, all of these units to decorate and close and manage. But in reality, it might take 6 months, a year to actually put this deal together. So the challenge right now for us is to execute on the units that we have under management, execute on the setting up and delivery of the unit that we have in Milwaukee. That's a major adventure. But the biggest challenge is finding the next deal, keeping a radar open for where are we going next, and not really knowing specifically where we're going, but being open to the possibility of, hey, it might be Montana right now, or it could be a great deal pops up in Indianapolis because one of my partners brought it to me and says, this is a great deal. So that's the hard part for her to wrap her head around. Me, it's a lot easier because, hey, let's just do it and let's just learn and get it going and we'll figure it out. That's the kind of my mentality. But that's the true challenge right now, Lauren, is where are we going and where's that next deal going to happen?
I think that's the most important mindset that you can have in short-term rentals and probably in real estate in general is you need to have confidence in yourself that you are the kind of person that every challenge you have faced, you have overcome, and you will continue doing that. There's the only way that you can keep doing real estate, in my opinion. So Les, I've learned a ton. I love your points about relationships. Have relationships with a mortgage broker. That would have saved you a bit of money, time, and certainly stress in Nashville. Have a relationship with realtors in the different areas. Keep in touch with people. You also had great relationships with your core group of investors. So that's a theme that I've kind of heard throughout. As we talked about, be willing to learn as you grow. Also be patient, but kind of always be looking. Don't be afraid to be a little bit salesy. I'm in sales. I know a lot of people don't really like the idea of being in sales, but you got to be able to sell yourself and sell your deals to people. Is there anything else you would add before we wrap up?
I think cash flow management is what I teach my business owners. Is one of the things that it took me a long time to learn. It truly is about cash flow, and it's also forecasting and making sure that you don't run out of money in this game of real estate. So I would just, and that might be a good link that I could add to your listeners, is that I have a cash flow forecasting system that they can use for their businesses and or their rental real estate that would be helpful. And I'll give that as a gift because that's what I give my coaching clients. But I would say from everything that you've heard, just add to the fact that, okay, now that you have the deal, you have to steward the cash so that you don't run out of money. And that is one of your biggest goals as the manager of other people's money, is to make sure that you protect their assets and you protect the cash that comes in from that investment that they made.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that earlier, financial acumen. This is a business. It needs to be understood as a business. And part of that is the financial statements and certainly cash flow. That's the one thing you can't do as a business. I mean, that's the gasoline that keeps it moving, is that cash. And Les, great point that you're a steward of other people's money. It's one thing if it's just yours, but it makes it 10 times more important when other people have trusted you with their hard-earned and hard-saved and hard-invested money.
So true.
So why don't you let people know how to get in touch with you? And I will put a link to that cash flow pro forma in the show notes as well.
lesohara.com is a good starting point. A great other way that I've been blown away is how many outstanding relationships that I've developed, including yourself, from Twitter, and business partners I've now had from Twitter. I think this real estate Twitter, is just an incredible opportunity for people to connect and be like-minded. The community is great on there. I'm Les O'Hara is my username at Twitter. LinkedIn is also a good place to just see some of the recommendations of people that I've coached and all the different kind of businesses that I'm running with right now.
Perfect. Thank you. I will put all of that in the show notes as well. Everybody probably know this by now, but you can follow me on Twitter at adultingiseasy. I'm also on Facebook. You can email me at realadultingiseasy@gmail.com. Speaking of Twitter and the real estate community, don't forget to join our Twitter Spaces live at 9:00 Eastern every Wednesday. And there also are recordings on this feed as well if you miss some. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Les and I have made adulting a little easier for you.